Former incels of Reddit, what made you realize that the incel community is toxic? Back in the 90s, before the word incel or Reddit existed, I went through a phase where I was extremely lonely and resentful, and basically I had to come out of it and accept myself as flawed and hope to find somebody who liked me with or without the flaws. It was very difficult, and I'm dang glad it's over. Anyway, I guess I identify with the incels a little bit, and I wish they would get their heads out of that bag and actually come around to the rest of the world. That kind of attitude doesn't make you happy, just makes you mad. When you're young and lonely, it is easy to get bitter. Most people learn to see past that. Some get consumed by it. I'm a legit incel due to handicap. But when I went to incel communities looking for help, all I found was misogyny, entitlement and hypocrisy. Whereas I'm just a shut-in that only goes outside like once a month. Yeah, it's really awful that the original creator of the term was looking for a way to describe herself, and it's been coopted by those buttholes. It's pretty toxic on the face of it, because collectively they exude pure, violent hatred for people just because of their genitals, and that is plain stupid. They also continually speak of relationships and sex as a game or transaction, which aside from being creepy seems to completely undermine their own source for their sense of persecution. Rather than the heartbreak of being alone, they themselves wind up framing the discussion in terms of entitlement to sex, which is just destructive. I was staring down that road for a long time, because I was endlessly rejected and felt powerless and alone and afraid. Living with yourself and knowing, absolutely knowing that you are unwanted and undesirable can erode not only your own sense of self-worth, but your sense of perspective. It is very easy to start to think unhealthy thoughts about the nature of the world and the people in it when your own experience has been so harsh for so much of your young life. People offer sops like it gets better and you'll find someone eventually, but there's no guarantee of that at all. Some people just are not wanted, and when you're in that situation, you know it. I was always aware the community was toxic, but what stopped me from being eventually sucked in was finding someone who didn't hate me. It's that simple and it's that difficult. There's no promise it will ever occur, because the power is with someone else. Incels are almost never going to develop a relationship with anyone because they started from a place of hatred, but most of them are so angry and hurt because they have been given good reason to believe that no amount of not being that way will ever let a relationship flourish. And while the vile culmination of their anger deserves condemnation, it doesn't help that they have had people laughing in their face every step of the way, reminding them over and over that the world thinks nothing of belittling ugly loser virgins. I used to sub to MGTOW. It was a great community in the beginning, with men basically living their lives and supporting each other through the tough spots. It got more and more toxic and misogynistic as time went on. Now I have to go my own way without them. They just put each other down and they constantly say stuff like cope, keck, rope yourself ugly manlet, or Chad only gets laid. I hate incels now with all my might, even though I was on cusps of being on at one point. They're an awful community full of rage. I haven't gotten laid yet, but I'm much happier without that mindset. I'm a virgin, but I've never identified with the incel community. Everything about them is toxic. Their attitude towards women and even other men who are able to get girlfriends is ridiculous. They want to blame anyone but themselves for their own shortcomings because it's easier to sit back and play the victim than try to improve themselves. I hate the idea of resigning to a life of bitterness. Even if I never have sex, I would rather find happiness in other ways than sit around feeling defeated, moaning on the internet about how women are W because they won't frick me. I always find it so funny when incels call women W. A W is generally defined as a woman who has sex with many different partners, yet incels call a woman a W for not sleeping with someone. Just wanna share this. I was extremely fat from the ages of 8 to 14. Obese as said by doctors. I had extreme allergies to some foods that made me balloon. Girls always laughed at me for trying to be nice, and I had no one there for me during anything. I had plenty of crushes, but no one would give me the time of day because of how I looked. Girls even toyed with my emotions just to have fun with me. I had drawn a short stick in life, at least for that portion. During that time I developed some really fricked up ideas due to being part of and identifying as part of the incel community. The most prevalent one was rape. I literally thought it was okay to rape people. I even devised plans. Looking back, I'm disgusted. I'm glad I never went through with one, thank God. The thing that made me snap out of all of that incel crap was when 2 of my female friends were raped around the time I turned 15. It didn't result in a rape baby, I'm happy to say, but the psychological torture that they suffered after that was so hard for me to see them go through. I completely rethought myself and what led me to think rape was fine. Being part of the incel community led to it. My rejection issues should not be forced onto anyone, especially not the girls who rejected me. To give you guys a context of time, I'm graduating now from high school and have shaped up majorly. I'm not fat. I identified my allergies and slimmed up. I lift weights and dance and sing now as part of a company and couldn't be happier as I am also now seeing someone. I may be young still, but I could have seriously screwed up my life if I had continued that way of thinking. Many moons ago, didn't get laid, was extremely overweight, entitled, thought every woman was a W, didn't work or go to school and played tons of video games, hit rock bottom, and then I got tired of being a loser and started actually doing something about it. I worked hard on making myself a better person, read books, quit gaming cold turkey, started going out, got a job, went to school, felt a purpose and started losing weight, and then bam, all of a sudden started getting laid because I gained confidence in myself. Now I look back and cannot recognize who I was. Good for you. Making big changes like that isn't easy. I'm proud of you, internet stranger. I wasn't, but I could have been. The thing is, you only need to glance at the incel community to realize that none of it is involuntary. If you hate yourself and everyone else, why on earth wouldn't everyone else hate you? I don't know if this counts, but I used to be an edgy shitlord. Posted some pretty terrible and embarrassing things, red pill type stuff. Realized when I was in high school that while I saw it as harmless joking around, it was pretty offensive and real crappy. So I stopped that crap. I deleted that stuff and started posting about things I actually believed, science and stuff like that. It was weird and disgusting seeing some of those saved pics on my old phone the last time I turned it on. Read up on incels because of this post. Honestly can't understand what the heck is their problem, but it seems to all partially revolve around the claim that even ugly women can get sex easily if they put themselves out there, whereas these incels can't. Buy a sex doll I say. Sex equals love. But what do I know? I'm a Chad. Funny because there are plenty of older women virgins who will never have sex. Never made it to incel stage, but there could have been moments where it got close. But one of the things that I realized a long time ago, that my happiness was my responsibility and no one else's. If I had a relationship, great. If not, I could still make my life worth learning. I realized it was toxic when I saw it. Even though I'm technically an incel, I don't consider myself one. I tend to direct my hatred toward the actual problem, myself. It's weird, I only started hearing this word recently, within the last few months, and it's always hurled as an insult. Has that term been around for much longer, or is it relatively new? It used to not be used as an insult, but a word that loveless, sexless men used to describe their situation. I was incel, but not an incel. I just have had trouble with my own issues and I tried dating, but there was just never a spark. I went a few years without the touch of a woman. It sucked, but I used to go through long deployments with no sex too, so it was just kinda normal for me to no have sex. Ex-wife fricked me up pretty good, and I was really afraid to out myself out there too, I guess. I honestly had a lot of issues and didn't even have time for dating in the past 6-ish years. I went through homelessness and mental health issues, but I came out of that with a better sense of who I was and who I wanted to be. Once I found myself, it was easier to find someone who accented me, and I found a couple girls too. They were good women, just didn't click like I'd hope. It's both the incel and femcel community that are toxic. There are too many people there that are flat out just mentally ill and cannot see that they are, or refuse to accept it. It's not a healthy place to be. On the other hand though, a lot of black pill stuff is true. Looks matter more than anybody will ever admit. It dictates your life to an extent. Though, I can't really stand to be around a lot of the incel stuff anymore. After being in the community and talking to some of the active people in there, it's glaringly obvious that they are unhealthily obsessed with looks and status. They honestly do not think personality matters at all in any sense. For everyone, they focus on the most vapid people and try projecting what they read about that person into every single person of whichever gender that person belongs to. It's almost a cult with how much they obsess over looks. There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I would never even be let into the incel club. I'm 6 feet 3 inches, but I used to be very heavy, so they called me a volsel, saying I could just do some curls and be a Chad. I'm no longer heavy, but wow, it basically took a year of food and exercise prison. So, marginalizing the pain of someone else is probably a start on why they disgust me. The next is my friend. A man with a girlfriend regularly having sex that identifies as a goostsel. As a man who believes the overarching theory and accompanied misogyny, but realizes himself to be Chadlite on the outside of it. Here's where I think incel logic fails. It's impossible to identify because the community exclusively exists online. There will always be one incel that thinks the other should be doing better and they would kill to have certain attributes. A large majority of the incel population is not incel forever, like disabilities and illnesses. They are incel now and could change. I had a client who probably would identify into the incel brigade. He's mid-30s, has a very nice job in IT, but he wears strange, straight long hair, light blue dad jeans, a strange brown belt, and weird as heck boots, accompanied by anime t-shirts. He greets me in internet pleasantries and talks in internet lingo, with the cadence of an operating system. He's 5 minutes and 10 seconds or so and not horrifically fat but could use some gym time. Actually, his beard is a great one, not just a neck beard. He is not an incel. He could wake up tomorrow and change his clothes, cut his hair with a fade, start the gym, trim the beard and immediately do significantly better. This is before even addressing being such a weirdo, which some girls might find quirky or cute. Every woman I've ever met tells me they care more about what's under the hood than the face value of attractiveness. Exactly how they buy cars as well. You can't get anywhere with an incel because they are now positioned with a worldview that the woman is a liar. You cannot convince them otherwise, so they will not enter a personality makeover and will simply continue to blame the woman. The argument is over there. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that ends in suicide. As a current incel, I'm fully aware that the community is toxic in its current state. It's the only place I can discuss a big problem in my life without being ridiculed for it, though. I had a friend who was venturing down this road maybe 6-7 years ago, and when he told me about some of the crap he was reading, I just told him how insane it was. He's engaged now and I'm super alone, lol. I wouldn't say I walked the path, but faced with a fork where one direction was paved with ignorantly expecting other people to make up for my deficiencies and the other with radical acceptance of my faults and working diligently to understand them, I chose radical acceptance. It was the harder path, but it ultimately made me a better, happier person over years of hard decisions, serious thought and personal growth. I can't imagine stopping my personal growth at 18 and spending the last 15 years filled with anger and entitlement instead. It's a horrifying prospect. I can also see where heading a few years down that path would have made it incredibly difficult to backtrack, because it would require accepting a lot more personal faults and shedding more deeply ingrained and well-developed anger and low self-esteem. I have had many people over the years comment on my unusually high self-esteem. I didn't start that way, but years of positive progress and making good decisions which I cannot find fault in or regret have helped me feel better about who I am and the path I'm on. I was the odd kid out in high school, so I wasn't getting any. Still haven't gotten past half hugs yet at 22. And someone passed the word incel, and upon a quick Google search I found it applied to me, along with a few incel subreddits and guys ask girls pages. So me being the sweet summer child I was, I go into those places seeking advice. By the time I came out I was disappointed. Like crap, it was a waste of getting my hopes up. So up to this day, because of unfortunate circumstances, I am an incel but not an incel. It's not that hard to see something is wrong. Spent a month on some forum when I was 19. Seemed cool at first because the stories and reports were very detailed. Most stories you hear from friends are like, dude, I was talking to this chick. Yeah bro, sex was great lol. But here the stories felt so vivid, which seemed helpful for someone lacking field experience as they called it. Loving sociology, I googled some of the terms they would throw around. I was able to log into EBSCO and start reading actual Evo Psych and sociology. There is a massive difference between objective, mostly dry relay of information, and the highly emotional viewpoints of their stories. The stories start to sound the same. The themes of women being inferior and stupid appear over and over. Meanwhile I'm just sitting there like WTF. I just wanna get laid. IDKY women have to be soulless creatures deserving zero respect. Anyway, long story short, science journals made more sense. And once I got out of summer school back into human contact, the forum was worthless. However, you can tell a lot of the people on there have no one eye roll. Community is the single greatest defense against oppressive spirals. Having basic needs go unmet drives most people insane, but watching that unraveling and insanity is sobering if you haven't been sucked too far in. Woman here. I once dated a man who was not by any standard an attractive man, but he had such an outgoing personality with an outstanding sense of humor that I found him attractive. His personality made him attractive, and not for nothing, but he treated me like a queen. For a small amount of time I considered myself an incel. I just thought it was just a bunch of self-aware unattractive losers with no real drive to be worthy of a significant other. We joke about women preferring better people in much the same way I will blame physics or gravity for my own klutzy mannerisms. Then I realized they weren't kidding. At all. Disturbed me quite a bit and I jumped ship immediately. I have since had a few physical relationships and am now a happily voluntary celibate. That crap is overrated. Not an incel, but I've met my fair share. Usually, finally getting laid and getting even beyond the carnal aspect of sex and into a more meaningful and intimate relationship fixes the issue. Sadly, this experience rarely happens for them. You can rarely help someone who doesn't believe they need help. Not me, but someone I know. When Alec Minashan ran over and killed 10 people, 8 women, 2 men, plus injuring 16 more using a rented van in Toronto. It's one thing being an uncle and another becoming a cold-blooded murder. The shame is too much. If it's not feeling shame that you're not man enough to get laid, it's embracing the identity that you feel was given to you. And that identity can't exist without shame and suffering. So, in order to remain a member, you must always have shame. And, to be fair, they aren't entirely wrong about the situation. Sex in the US is treated as a transaction. If you're a worthy man, women will open their sex purse and pay in social credibility. Then they will be ashamed. If you're a loose woman, you are worthless. If you are an unemployed man, you are worthless. And you will be scrub shamed. If women are taught to withhold sex in hopes of finding a wealthy, attractive man, men will work harder for society and all be bred more attractive. It's an incredibly insidious narrative. But I think we all, hopefully, reach a point where we recognize that the joyful part of humanity doesn't actually work like that. That's only what we were implicitly taught through subtle cultural means. It's a fine line. But I think the best thing we can all do is relax, like who we like, help each other feel okay with ourselves, and use compassion as a tool to help each other wake up. And not compassion like pity or placation. Compassion like genuinely listening to each other and trying to understand each other's reality without judgment. We can learn a lot from each other. Not an incel, but spent a good 5-6 years in a rut of self-pity, bitter and lonely and looking for any excuse to blame the world, rather than change myself. Glad I grew out of that, for the most part. Respond to my other arguments and do so substantively or don't do this at all. Celebrated Ted Bundy? Who the heck is celebrating Ted Bundy? Literally no one. And is it women who you claim are dehumanizing incels, or is it primarily other men? It's other men, dude. A woman who I was platonically talking said something along the lines of, "Goddamn it, you're better than this. I get tired of having to defend all of womankind when you start going full incel." That stopped me real quick when she said that. Hate never dispels hate, only love dispels hate. But also antidepressants and social interaction help. Going on 10 years single, got used by a woman as an option. She ditched me after 3 dates. including dinner and talking to me for hours. I thought I had found someone special. We had been friendly for years before that. Nope, life kicked me in the nuts. She ran back to her ex and I have not seen her or heard from her in weeks. I guess I was just a friend in her eyes. Oh well. She wants that single dad dong with a young son. Hope she can treat them right. Who am I to judge? I feel fine, but empty. Got to keep on living and not waste time in hate. Keep pushing to improve yourselves and learn peace. You all may enjoy Against the Stream by Noah Levine. Enjoy internet, folks. It's ironic that they hate Chads and Stacys, but act like they need sex to be respected by those same people. Hire a frickin' escort or something. I went through an incel phase as a late bloomer. Incels were some of the kindest people I had the great pleasure of knowing. They tried to encourage one another to be healthy, happy, and the sort of person that they would want to date. They tried to connect one another to mental health services, new and interesting hobbies, and encouraged cooking as a means to meet others. I had a brief period during puberty in which I now know I was an incel. Thought I was such a nice guy. I deserved a girlfriend, but the stupid bee all went for buttholes. Then I got a girlfriend and learned it isn't all that amazing. At least that relationship wasn't, and it genuinely wasn't my fault. But mostly I just grew out of it. I gained perspective with age and I was never too far gone, so when I started browsing the internet more and seeing actual incels on there, I realized how ridiculous it is. I can't really blame my 16-year-old self for being retarded. Yeah, I've never bought into the legitimacy of incels. If you want sex that bad, lower your standards. These guys want Swedish supermodels for girlfriends, but aren't willing to become models themselves. At the end of it, it's not sex they're desiring, it's love. They want to be loved by the most beautiful woman while never shaving, weighing 350 pounds, and making a bit above minimum wage. Personally, I think these guys are the products of single mothers who weren't equipped to love their children and meet their needs. These men had to meet their mother's needs as boys and now don't know how to provide for themselves. They don't have a template for love, so these delusions are what we see. Wish them the best. For all their hate and anger, I just see pain. If people weren't so easily triggered, that would be clear. Strawman, do some research. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.